Time now for our rants and raves, starting with Dan Kennedy.
I have a rant for Digital First Media, the giant newspaper chain that has been hollowing out newspapers from the Denver Post to the Boston Herald. Now they're making their biggest pitch yet. They're trying to mount a hostile takeover of the Gannett Company, which is another huge chain of newspapers. And I guess you might say that Gannett is just, not as bad, but they're all just cutting their properties to ribbons. And but unfortunately, if Digital First is able to prevail here, people will absolutely be looking at Gannett as the good old days. It looks like Tribune Publishing may end up acquiring Gannett, which would be, I wouldn't say a great outcome, the least awful outcome. And so I hope that's what happens. Preempting Digital First, yes.
All right, Joanna.
So I have a rave for The Onion, which came out this week with one of my favorite Onion pieces of all time about the Fox News Channel coming up with an entire new channel dedicated to coverage of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, the AOC zone. Not only, usually with The Onion, it's only like, all you need to read is the headline, but here the copy was wonderful too. It talked about a 12-person panel that was there to analyze her every waking thought and her clothing, and then their flagship program was going to be, AOC Tonight with Tucker Carlson.
Because he's always so angry about her. He gets all worked up, but as Adam said last week, he's just obsessed with her.
I know. It's like, I don't even know why I need to talk about anything because The Onion manages in 200 words to encapsulate everything that's wrong with cable news, so hats off to them.
All right, Callie.
Okay, think about this headline. Will Jeff Bezos get half of Mackenzie Bezos' fortune in the divorce? Notice something there? Penelope Trunk wrote brilliantly, I thought, for LinkedIn, saying she is sick to death of how this has been portrayed as if Mackenzie is getting half of his fortune. In fact, as she points out in her well-researched article, they built this company together. At a point when they had kids, she went off to do the kids, he went off to do the work. They own it together. They built it together. But it's being portrayed, because she's a powerful woman, as if she's getting something from him. And how much will she get? Well, she gets half because she built it. So that's what's happening here. And by the way, this is #1 in my pushback against Dan Lothian, who tells me that this kind of media stuff does not show up often about powerful women. NBC's headline was something about the settlement between the world's richest man and his wife. They want to know, or she wants to know, Penelope, what would it mean if it said the settlement between the world's richest woman and her husband? Be all kinds of response to that.
I thought it was great. I mean, I had the exact same reaction to it because a lot of the reporting earlier in the week really said that they had amassed the fortune together, but then you started seeing those headlines saying, "Oh, well, they must have already agreed on this. Once they made the announcement, he must have given her half." And,
right. What kind of greedy stuff is this woman going to get? The greedy
Although,
woman.
let me ask you: did Mackenzie Bezos ever make one of those door desks that Amazon is famous for?
Let me tell you what she did. She made 4 little Jeff Bezos. Is what she did, and daggone it, that's enough to get paid for.
Yes, it is.
Continue.
Jorge, top that.
Well, I've got a rave. A shout out to the Globe. I had the honor and privilege for a number of years of being the MC of the Boston Public Schools valedictorian luncheon. Afternoon of great promise and joy, and the Globe has put together a series, which I think it's online, and it'll be on the magazine on Sunday, about the valedictorian classes of 2005 to 2007. They actually tracked down 98 or so of 113 valedictorians. And I was impressed and saddened by the conclusions, impressed by the incredible reporting, saddened by the fact that 40% of them don't make, 40% of them, I think, didn't graduate in college in 6 years. A fourth don't make make only $50,000 a year. 1 in 4 said they were going to be doctors. Not one of them went to medical school. It just shows, and about 4 of them are homeless. And it goes to show you that the promises of our schools are yet to be fulfilled. How so often it was just more than grades, because they had grades, they just weren't
unprepared. They got them these great colleges, though.
They got into the schools, but they didn't have the preparations. The Boston Public Schools, except for the exam schools, left them unprepared to deal with the rigors of
agree. I was going to rave for that before you did.
And it's really a must read, and it's a call for action for once again for the Boston Public Schools.
Yeah. Too often we're going back and looking at what happened to the lottery winners. This was the perfect example.
And I must have handed out the dictionary and the backpack to some of those kids because I was there.
I MC the luncheon where they get get named.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, so did Jorge.
It was just very sad to read this.
All right. Well, I have a rant today for CNN's Avina Martin, who's a regular contributor there. She does commentary on CNN, and she was invited onto David Webb's Sirius talk show, radio talk show. He is also a regular commentator on Fox. She did not do her due diligence. Let's see what happened here.
I never considered my color the issue. I considered my qualifications issue.
Well, David, that's a whole nother long conversation about white privilege and things that you have the privilege of doing that people of color don't have the privilege of.
How do I have the privilege of white privilege?
By virtue of being a white male, you have white privilege. This whole long conversation, I don't have time to get into it.
Ariva, I hate to break it to you, but you should have been better prepped. I'm black.
First of all, I can't imagine going on a radio show or a talk show of any kind without Googling the host, without finding out what the intent is. What are you going to ask me? What's this about? Why are you even interviewing me? I can't imagine in this day and age not doing a basic thing like looking up who the guy is.
Well, sometimes you go into the lion's den knowing what you're getting into.
Yeah, I mean, Bill O'Reilly, you know what you're going to get, or anybody like that. But if you don't know who it is, then you got to look it up.